In the coming days, Peter learns Gwen only met with Flash to talk as friends, and she wasn't dating Flash. With this revelation, he calls Gwen to apologize for his recent behavior with her. Gwen accepts Peter's apology and invites him to a museum exhibit downtown, which Peter gladly agrees to. When Peter arrives, Gwen is surprised to see he got there so quickly, and Peter pulls her to a private room for a kiss. However, the moment is interrupted when the chameleon walks by, disguised as Gwen's father. After valuable paintings are stolen and the police appear, Gwen worries about her father, as he has disappeared. Then, after Peter takes an anxious Gwen home, they find her father, who reports he's been home all day, leading Peter to go on and take down the chameleon. One day, Peter is anxious in his worries and asks himself how is it fair to expect Gwen to love him if he can't tell her who he really is. Just then, Mary Jane arrives from her stay in Florida and tells Peter that Gwen wants him to call her. Peter calls Gwen, and she reminds him about Flash's farewell dinner, and also adds that MJ is off limits to her guy. Later, Peter arrives at Gwen's home, caught up in his financial worries, and Gwen lets him in, joking about his not-so-passionate demeanor. The pair head over to the party, but Peter worries that he has no money to chip in as they arrive. As usual, MJ and Gwen jokingly play fight over Peter, but when Flash jokingly makes a play for Gwen, Peter gets upset and leaves to cool his head. Seeing this, Gwen tells the others that Peter has not been himself all night. Then, Gwen follows Peter to the street and asks him what's wrong, and if it's something she did. Peter responds by sharing his worries and then says that he is broke, asking why should Gwen be with someone like him. Gwen says she doesn't care how much money he has and that he's the best thing that's happened to her as she hugs Peter. Then Peter tells himself it's time to admit what's really bothering him, the fact that he can't bring himself to tell Gwen that he is really Spider-Man. But Gwen says she'll help Peter, and they go sit on a bench together. Gwen tells Peter she'd rather be there than anywhere else in the world, as Peter thinks that he is to amount to something one day for Gwen. Soon, Peter and Gwen see Flash off at the airport, and MJ gives Flash a kiss goodbye. Seeing this, Gwen tells Peter to kindly look the other way, as she makes a show of giving Flash a kiss as well. In response, Peter starts to voice his disapproval, but Gwen interrupts him and says she was actually trying her best to make him jealous. After watching Flash's flight leave, the group leaves the airport together. Gwen sees Peter lost in his worries and asks what's bothering him, to which Peter replies sometimes nothing makes sense. After MJ suggests they all hang out together that evening, Gwen declines, saying she wants Peter to herself. As they leave, Peter thanks Gwen because he wasn't in the mood. Just then, as they walk on the street, Peter saves Gwen from a truck that was sideswiped off the road. However, Gwen is hurt and knocked unconscious. Trapped under the truck, Peter grabs a broken parking meter to support the vehicle, and afterward, an ambulance is called to take Gwen to the hospital. After checking Gwen in, Peter leaves as there is nothing he can do there now, and goes off to take care of business as Spider-Man. When he returns to check on Gwen, Peter tries to speak to her, but she does not respond. Peter asks Gwen what's wrong. Does she not hear him? An angry Gwen responds that she hears her ever-loving boyfriend, who cares so much about her, that he stayed away till now. Then, Gwen asks her father to have Peter leave. Hurt by Gwen's attitude towards him, Peter asks, how can Gwen assume he only left because he didn't care about her? Captain Stacy says his daughter was just emotional and will likely see things differently by the next morning. Later, Peter broods over his last encounter with Gwen, wishing he could tell her his secret as it would make things so much easier, but fearful to tell her, because he may lose her over it. He decides to visit Gwen to see how she is, despite it being late in the evening. Gwen tells Peter that she's been doing a lot of thinking about them and trying to make up her mind on their relationship. It's just that Peter is so secretive. As Gwen starts to probe Peter about his secrets, Peter tries to change the subject, saying that he cares for Gwen, as her father interrupts the conversation to Peter's relief. Then Peter drops his mug, acting unwell, to get out the conversation with Gwen, and says he must be getting home. Peter then escapes to be Spider-Man, thinking that a battle with his villain is better than facing Gwen's questions. Some time later, the Stacys visit Peter, and Gwen's father probes him about his pictures of Spider-Man, asking how he is always so lucky to be in the right place at the right time. Realizing Captain Stacy is onto him, Peter makes an excuse to exit the room and then appears as Spider-Man through the window in an attempt to mislead the Stacys. He pretends Spidey is in league with Peter on taking the photos, and that he is angry with Peter, who owes him a cut of the money. In response, Gwen defends Peter to Spider-Man and claims Peter is not home. Then, Gwen's father suggests they leave, as Gwen starts to believe that Spider-Man must be the reason Peter is so nervous and fearful all the time. Soon, Gwen returns to check on Peter, fearing for his safety, only to find the apartment is now empty. Gwen starts to fear Spider-Man has done something terrible to Peter, maybe even holding him prisoner. In response, Captain Stacy calls the precinct to have them look into Peter's disappearance. Soon, the Stacys visit Harry Osborn to see if he knows where Peter is. Harry tries to reassure a distressed Gwen that even though he never knows where Peter goes, he always comes back. Watching from the window, Peter can't bear to see Gwen upset, so he changes into his civilian clothes and makes his way inside. Seeing Peter, Gwen is relieved that he is okay, but as she hugs him, she notices his face is bruised. Assuming Spider-Man hurt Peter, Gwen says she knew Spider-Man was dangerous. She could sense it. But Peter is unable to come up with a response, because if he goes along with Gwen's assumption, Gwen will end up hating Spider-Man. So instead, Peter says he's not in trouble and asks why everyone is hounding him about it. Shocked by Peter's response, Gwen questions if that's how Peter really feels about the girl who loves him. Realizing he hurt Gwen with his response, Peter apologizes for snapping at her. However, Gwen demands that Peter promise he won't have anything to do with Spider-Man ever again, as he is too dangerous, and the photos are not worth the risk. Peter sulks at the impossible request Gwen has made, and Captain Stacy confirms that his daughter feels that Peter is keeping something from her. Feeling unwell, Peter fears he may be on the verge of losing Gwen. Soon, it is Gwen Stacy's birthday, but Peter is unable to get Gwen a gift in time, and his spider powers are fading as he is feeling ill. Peter thinks it's the end of Spider-Man with his powers no longer working, and he contemplates that it's time to reveal his secret identity. Meanwhile, Gwen can't believe Peter is late for her own birthday party as she looks out the window anxious for his arrival. Eventually, Gwen tries to put a happy demeanor on, but it doesn't last long as Gwen starts to cry. Just then, Peter walks in the door, mask in hand, and reveals that he is Spider-Man in front of everyone. As Peter starts to apologize for all the trouble his secret has caused, Gwen is on the verge of hysteria, questioning Peter and unable to believe what she is hearing. Seeing the grief the revelation has caused Gwen, Peter runs away, unable to deal with what he just did. Meanwhile, Gwen begs her father to tell her she didn't hear what she just thought she did. That could not have been Peter. Not her Peter. Then, Harry starts to suspect maybe it was an act, like the time before with Dr. Octopus, but Gwen questions what if it wasn't an act. MJ makes her usual sarcastic jokes, but Gwen tells her to shut up, not wanting to entertain MJ's behavior. Later, after Peter recovers and his powers start to return, he realizes he must take back everything he said, so he enlists the help of Hobie Brown, the Prowler. Returning to Gwen, he tells her in front of everyone that he had the flu and didn't know what he was saying, and that Spider-Man had given Peter his mask. Gwen, with tears in her eyes, desperately says she wants to believe Peter. Just then, Hobie Brown appears, dressed up in Peter's costume to fully sell Peter's story, including that Peter has a deal with him with the photos he takes. As Hobie leaves, Gwen hugs Peter, saying having him back is the best birthday present she could have. Then, feeling Peter's warm head, Gwen suggests he go home and get rest. But as Peter leaves, even though everything is now well and his secret identity is secured, he finds that he still has trouble accepting it, and it feels that he is still walking on eggshells. One day, in the school hall, Gwen and Peter are happy to see each other and take a moment to flirt before heading to their next class. Later, after Peter meets with Professor Warren on his declining grades due to his frequent absences, he meets with Gwen and tells her about it. In response, Gwen offers to help Peter study. However, Peter soon has a difficult battle with Dr. Octopus and passes out on the street in front of Captain Stacy. Peter then wakes up in the Stacy home with Gwen watching over him, who is happy to see that he is recovering after he wakes up. Soon, Peter leaves to track down Dr. Octopus. In their battle on the rooftops, a chimney is broken, causing bricks to fall to the streets below, where Captain Stacy saves a young boy from being killed at the last second. However, Peter finds that Captain Stacy was hit by the debris instead and brings him to a nearby rooftop to help him. Unfortunately, Gwen's father has been fatally wounded and, in his last moments, reveals he knows Peter is Spider-Man and tells Peter to look after Gwen. After Captain Stacy dies in Peter's arms, Peter swears he will love and cherish Gwen, but wonders how he can ever reveal his secret to her, now that he is responsible for her father's death.